People say, oh, to be powerful, I need to be stoic. And I say, tell me what that means to you. And they often tell me, don't show my emotions on my face, be intimidating and imposing. Like they think of it as an aspect of power or leadership. Actually, the best leaders are not unreadable, they are purposeful.
Would we be talking about the work of these people 2,000 years later if the Stoics weren't charismatic, if their message wasn't captivating? Vanessa Van Edwards is one of the best people in the world at this.
I was like, that is me. I'm smelling like fear. And that makes people nervous. And that's why I was having all these awkward interactions.
I'll take the feedback. What can I be?
You are in control of your emotions and how that comes across to others. In fact, you're more in control than you ever realized. And if you command yourself first, that then helps you command a room.
Well, let's say I go to the party. How can I be better at it?
That is the worst thing you could do for likability. I can't just be more confident. I can't just turn off my fear, but I can distract my fear. I can distract it. I can displace it.
How do you deal with this person who is not behaving or acting in a way that you like? And I imagine that starts with reading what they're doing and trying to understand why.
That is really important. I do not want anyone to
All right, so I think we have beef.
We do?
Yes, I noticed.
You're angry at me.
I notice you use the word stoic somewhat pejoratively. Like you use lowercase stoic.
Sometimes I do.
Yeah. As basically sort of the stereotype of what people think stoic
Yes.
is, which is kind of unfeeling, unemotional, shut off.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, first, I apologize to all my capital Stoics. I don't mean it in a mean way. I see my book.
Oh, good.
I distracted you. Let's talk about something else. No, I'm just joking. I do actually see it. I see it. It's funny because I use the word stoic because I actually don't mean it negative. I think that people aspire to be stoic and they misinterpret that as I have to be in control of my feelings physically and internally.
Okay.
And so when I say stoic, people often tell me, like they say, oh, to be powerful, I need to be stoic. And I say, tell me what that means to you. And they often tell me it means hide my hand, don't show my emotions on my face, be intimidating and imposing. Like they think of it as an aspect of power or leadership.
Sure.
And actually, the best leaders are not unreadable, they are purposeful. So I do believe that showing emotional cues that are not helpful or not aiding your message, I think that is not being a good leader.
Sure.
But I think it is very powerful to choose your cues purposefully. But that means not going mute.
Yes.
So many people go mute thinking that that's making them look powerful, but actually it's making them unreadable.
Well, and also whether you're showing the emotions or not, to me is secondary to whether you are a slave to them in your actions. So having the, like somebody says something to you and it lands and it hurts is very different. To me is not that significant, right? What's significant to me is what you do after.
Yes, completely. And I also think that cues are a cycle, right? So like when I'm saying something, you just nodded.
Yeah.
I'm like, great, he agrees, keep going. Oh, you're doing good.
Yeah.
And especially for social overthinkers and recovering awkward people, I'm a recovering awkward person. People who are unreadable, and I'll say stoic in the lowercase, they make me very nervous.
Yeah.
I have a problem. I misinterpret neutral cues as negative.
Yeah.
People with narcissistic mothers actually tend to have this problem. It's been studied.
Yeah.
And so what you have to realize, if you are stoic or unreadable, you don't send enough cues, it's actually punishing.
It's very disconcerting because you're like, I'm not sure if you're getting this or not.
And worse, I think you're mad at me.
Yeah.
And I do think everyone's mad at me all the time.
Yeah.
And I have to like tell myself, like, no matter what dinner or party I leave, I say to my husband, oh, she hates me.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, she didn't say that. And I'm like, okay. And that's why I learned cues.
Right.
Is because I was misinterpreting neutral or even positive cues as negative.
Yeah.
And that was causing me to doubt myself, which made me stoic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was happening is I would go mute. I would go completely unreadable because I didn't know what cues to send, which then made people awkward, which made me more awkward. And it was this terrible cycle.
Right.
And so most of my students are very, very smart.
Yeah.
High achievers, they rely on their book smarts and their ideas. And that's great. You can have the best idea in the world, but if you do not share it with warmth, people will not believe it. And this is actually studied. So Princeton University did research on highly competent people. And they found that when you share something competent without warmth, it leaves people feeling suspicious. Suspicious is the word they use in the research.
Yeah.
And this struck, I was like, yes, this is it. That when someone tells me something and I don't see the warmth with it, I'm suspicious of them or of me. Mm-hmm. And so I think that we have to learn to be in control of our cues. And that is also Stoic in the way of like being in control, I think.
Well, it's kind of hyper rational, right? It's like you have to understand how this works too.
Yes.
And you have to deploy it deliberately and intentionally. And if you can't, there's a deficiency there and a sort of a weakness there, I think.
Yes. I also think you can be unreadable and mute when you want to show someone you are not in agreement.
Yeah.
Like when I negotiate for a car, I let my nonverbal speak for me. Like I will be super warm, smiling, head tilting, nodding, all the good warm cues until they say something I don't like. And then I go completely mute.
Yeah.
And usually people will pick up on it and they start negotiating with themselves.
Yeah.
So you can also use it to your advantage as long as you're in control of it.
Yeah. I think that's interesting. Like in sports too, when you watch like a really good coach know how to use and deploy emotion to bring out emotion or to suppress emotion in other people. Like the coach is oftentimes not as angry as they look because they are trying to send a message to the refs or send a message to the team. They're having to strategically deploy emotion. And if they are totally mute and dispassionate, that's going to be a problem.
Right. Unless they use it purposefully.
Yes.
Right? Like if the coach wants the players to focus on the game, going mute is actually quite helpful.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to read there.
Yes.
So no mental energy is going to go there. No cognitive load is going to go there. I also think inspiring your players, remember, warmth and competence is contagious. Our emotions are contagious.
Sure.
So if you want to inspire camaraderie, like on a team, you want the players to be reading each other in sync, totally working together. You want to be infecting warmth.
Yeah.
But if you want them to be strategic, think very carefully about the plays and play very subtly and purposefully, you'd want to inspire competence.
Yeah.
And so I think that is also a way that leaders, especially in sports, but even in corporate teams, you are so purposeful if you're like, I'm going to dial up what I think the team needs right now. Like, for example, have you heard of the touchy-feely index?
No.
Okay, so I think this was, by the way, researchers' excuse to watch sports for academics. Okay, so it was a bunch of researchers, and they had a hypothesis that basketball teams that touch more play better.
Touch each other?
Yes.
Okay.
The theory being that if you touch, you produce oxytocin. Oxytocin does a lot of things in our body, but for our purposes, it is the feeling of belonging, of connection, of comfort. It makes us trust more. It makes us read faces better. It makes us better at being human, especially teamwork. So they had a hypothesis, if a team touches a lot, their oxytocin levels are higher. They will be better at reading each other's minds and playing in sync. Yeah. So they watched basketball games, and I forget the number exactly, but it was they found that the team that touched the most were the Mavericks. Okay.
Like this is recent?
No, this was when the Mavericks won. Okay. So they found that the Mavericks touched the most, like by a lot. And this was everything from back pats to high fives to fist bumps to butt touches to, all the things. Yeah. And they found there was direct correlation. I don't know causation, direct correlation between the number of times that players touched and winning. And I said, this is it. Like, this is something really powerful because it's speaking to that if you initiate the right kinds of cues, you spark something magical that happens internally, but also as a team.
Yeah, I'd also maybe hypothesize that instead of 5 individuals, it's 5 people connected in some physical way, right? You know what I mean? It's a sort of reinforcing the literal bonds between the 5 discrete individuals.
The literal chemical bonds. So like they're reading better, they're interacting more. And then there's a lot that we don't understand, that science doesn't understand about this.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite studies is about how our fear is contagious. I also think there's something to that.
Yeah.
I think for a long time I was awkward because I was accidentally sending fear signals. And I think that we don't like
you
to
can
be...
sort of smell it. It's just uncomfortable. This is a bad, and I don't like this energy.
I don't like it. We don't want to be fierce. Like the gross experiment is that they took students and they put half of them on a treadmill and they collected their sweat. Put half of them in a plane. They pushed them out the plane to skydive for the first time, collected their sweat. Had unsuspecting people go into an fMRI and smell the sweat. And people who smelled the fear sweat, even though they had no idea what they were smelling, caught the fear.
Interesting.
Their amygdala lit up.
Sure.
And so I was like, that is me. I am going into events and I'm smelling like fear.
Yeah.
And that makes people nervous. And that's why I was having all these awkward interactions. Okay, I can't just be more confident. I can't just turn off my fear.
Right.
But I can distract my fear. I can distract it. I can displace it.
Yeah.
And so my entire goal is to displace fear with purpose so that I say, okay, I don't know what to talk about. I'm going to go in with a conversational blueprint. So I know exactly what my intentional connection goals are. Mm-hmm. I know what to say. That's going to displace that overthinking. I'm going to know what to do with my body, my hands, my shoulders, my feet. I'm going to know how I want to greet, how I want to make eye contact or nod. Those blueprints replace the overthinking so that I'm not afraid.
Right.
It's my side door into confidence.
Yeah, you have a plan. And so your confidence is in the plan rather than in yourself.
That's it. Yeah.
I think one of the things I think the Stoics talk a lot about that I think connects to the idea of emotion is like, how do you deal with difficult people, right? Like the famous quote from Marcus Aurelius about how the obstacle is the way. He's talking about people who get in our way, like difficult people. And his point was that when he's saying the obstacle is the way, he's saying that difficult people are a chance for us to practice, not just how you deal with difficult people, which is a fact of life, but it's a chance to practice a bunch of forms of sort of emotional control and awareness and creativity. Like, how do you deal with this person who doesn't like you? How do you deal with this person who is awkward or weird? Or how do you deal with this person who's afraid? Like, how do you deal with this person who is not behaving or acting in a way that you like? And I imagine that starts with reading what they're doing and trying to understand why.
Yes, reading what they're doing. And also I think that my approach to difficult people is predicting their difficulty. Like, I don't even want to get to the point where you're difficult with me. I want to understand your narrative and your behavior cues so I can know what's going to trigger you and I can know what's going to detonate you.
Yeah.
And so I'm very into understanding, there's difficult people. Everyone has difficult people in their life. I like to know their self-narrative. I want to know, what is the story you're telling yourself about yourself that makes you so difficult for me?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
sure.
That is, I think, the Stoic perspective of like, this person is challenging me in some way. Something about their narrative does not jive with mine.
Yeah.
And so I have a couple of questions that I often use with my difficult people, and this has fundamentally changed my relationships with them. They're much less difficult for me now because I realized, this is why they're like this. So for example, one study is about luck, and you try to figure out how lucky someone is because that actually tells you a lot about how they see themselves. So like Richard Wiseman did this famous study with newspapers. He handed people a newspaper. He asked them how lucky they thought they were. People who think they're very lucky did very well in the following challenge. He asked them to open the newspaper and count the number of images in the newspaper. On the second page of the newspaper, it said, "Stop counting. There are 43 images in this newspaper." Almost all the lucky people saw the advertisement, stopped counting, and handed back the newspaper.
Okay.
The unlucky people missed it, and they kept counting, and they got more wrong answers, and it took them double the amount of time.
Yeah.
Meaning, if you are lucky, you literally see more opportunities. You literally are looking for more opportunities. Unlucky people miss more.
Okay.
And they are creating their own bad luck.
Sure.
And so I believe self-narratives are self-creating. If you have a story that you tell yourself about yourself, and you keep telling that story, it will keep happening to you, which I think is also very Stoic.
Yes.
This is difficult people.
Okay.
Difficult people have a story they're telling about themselves, and it keeps repeating over and over again. So high conflict people,
right,
for example, they really challenge me because I don't like conflict.
Yeah. And they're looking for it.
And they create it.
Yes.
They not only look for it, they create it.
Yeah.
And so if I know that someone is a high conflict person, I can then figure out, okay, what is the story they're telling themselves? Usually, and there's one person in my life, I ask them, do you think you're lucky?
Yeah.
It's a very casual question, by the way. It's like real easy to sneak in there.
Sure.
Are you lucky? And he said, oh, no. I'm so unlucky. I zig, everyone zags. Okay.
Yeah.
That was so helpful for me to know because the difficulty, I realized all the fights we were having had to do with the fact that he felt like he was zigging and everyone was zagging and he was mad.
Yeah.
So my approach to him then was when I could see the zagging simmering, I was like, hey, listen, you're with us.
Yeah.
You're with us. I know you think you're zigging, but actually you're over here with us zagging over here. And we are on the same page. We are on the same team. You are with us. You are not apart from us.
Right.
That I could see him literally
preempting the disagreement or the disconnection before it happens.
Yes.
And reinforcing that it, in fact, does not exist.
And stopping the self-narrative of unluck and doubt or bad luck and doubt so that he didn't hate himself. Because that's what was happening, really.
Right.
Is he hated that he was constantly zigging and he always felt wrong. And so he would make himself wrong.
Sure.
By
It's
doing
more
it more.
comfortable.
And so I think that that's when I think about difficult people, I actually want to know, what is my narrative? What is their narrative? Like,
Yeah.
I have my own narratives, right?
Yeah, sure.
And I know the ones that don't go well with me, and I'm allergic to those people.
Yeah.
So even when like I'm hiring or looking at potential friendships, there are certain kinds of people I am allergic to. I do not get along well with them. And I
Right.
have questions that,
To find out. So what are other questions you ask about difficult people to understand them?
do you like astrology?
What does
I'm a
that tell
hard
you?
no
Yeah.
on that. I'm a very science-based
Yeah.
person.
Okay.
So like I'll be like, oh, like what's your sign?
Yeah.
You know? And if someone's like, what? I'm like, yeah, we're gonna be friends. We're gonna get along really well. If someone's like, well, the third moon of Saturn is
Yeah.
a Taurus with, and I'm like,
Prepare
I
for
don't.
some nonsense.
And like, I look, people who love astrology and Enneagram, like, good on them.
Yeah.
I just know that we're probably not going to go deep.
Right.
And so I'm at that point going to keep it a little bit more cash, more funsies. We're probably not going to like go to a ranch for the weekend, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so that's like a really simple, casual one. The other one I ask right away is, so like, what was your biggest goal for 2025? What was your biggest goal this year? I'm very goal oriented. And I've found that when people tell me, I don't believe in goals, which there are people who don't, cool. They're going to be annoyed with me because I'm going to be talking a lot about goals.
Yes. Sure. So
Yeah.
you're looking for sources of sort of worldview conflict early on, and then you can kind of know what to say or not say. Not that you're hiding yourself. You're just, I remember I was going to do like a very difficult interview a couple years ago, and someone gave me some really advice. They were like, here's what this person perceives as a threat. And so they're like, just don't go over there and it'll be very not contentious. She was saying that what happens is people sort of accidentally stumble into this and then they can't get out of it because now that person's triggered and then you're triggered. And so it's not that it's like weak or you're somehow like, if there was a serious conflict that, you know, serious disagreement that needed to be had, I would have it. But the purpose of this interview was to go well and for me to say what I needed to say.
Was it astrology?
Yeah. No, but it was like, hey, so just don't get yourself bogged down in this thing that you don't care about because you made a flippant remark 3 minutes in and now the whole thing is lost.
That's it. And also as a low confrontational person, I want to avoid that. I also I think there are two kinds of people, dream killers and dream builders.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a dream builder. I'm a puppy. Like I have golden retriever energy. Like that is, I like to root people on and if they're talking about astrology, I don't feel super authentic because I don't want to be like, yeah, Gemini. Sure. Oh yeah.
Or you're already, you're just like, you're bullshitting.
I will do anything to avoid inauthenticity because it makes me feel so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so I want to avoid fake enabling of things I don't like. So one, I'm trying to protect myself, but also them. Like I don't want them to feel that inauthenticity from me. And then also like there are times where I want a dream killer. Like I want that energy.
Truth or
like if I'm working on a book and I'm like, I need you to shoot down this idea and ask me the hardest questions you can possibly ask me. Like it's super helpful for me to hear like, you got beef with me about Stoic. I'm like, you're right. Like that is true. Like that is a true thing. And like, I'm going to like try to reorient how I use that word. Because that's not how I mean it. So like I should use more, I think, unreadable.
Well, actually, it's funny. I had the same conversation with Stacey Abrams one time because when she very narrowly lost that first election in Georgia, she was like, hey, I'm not going to be stoic about this. And what she did was she went out and formed this voting rights, voter activization organization that ended up changing the course of the 2020 election and then the 2020 one-ish election, the special Senate election. And I was trying to say like, that was the definition of stoic, which is you took a crushing loss and channeled that energy into something positive.
Obstacles away.
You're just, exactly.
Obstacles away.
It's unfortunate that what stoic means in English is unfeeling and unemotional and sort of unattached. And that's really not what it is. I think like look, we have a bunch of stories about Marcus Aurelius crying. The Stoics wrote beautiful poetry and wrote plays. Quite feeling.
Clearly,
I think the idea is to not be mastered by these emotions, but to in fact master them yourself. Like,
that's it.
They have this idea of being in command of yourself first before you have the right to be in command or in leadership of other people. And I think that's the idea. So it's not that you have no emotions. It's that you have to understand those emotions and decide which ones you deploy, which ones you act on, which ones you process, and which one you try to do work on.
And in that way, my books are Stoic. Right. In that way, like that is my mission, is like you are in control of your emotions and how that comes across to others. In fact, you're more in control than you ever realized.
Yes.
And if you command yourself first, that then helps you command a room. And so really they should be Stoic books. That's what I've just decided.
Sure.
And so like that was a really helpful piece of feedback. And so when I'm researching or writing books, I want the dream killers that I disagree with.
Sure.
But I know who they are.
Yeah.
And I know when to go to them.
And you've invited them in. It's not a random person on social media who's shitting on you.
Right.
Yes.
Or when I'm not ready. Like, for example, there are, for me, when I'm writing, there are like ideation phases. Mm-hmm. There is research phase, and there is honing, and then there is like editing and wrestling with the words. Yeah. And I cannot have a dream killer in ideation. And I will not go on walks with them. I do walk and talks. Yeah, I will not go on walk and talks with them because I know
you're too vulnerable at that point.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And their narrative is confrontational. Mm-hmm. Their self-narrative is, I'm going to make people better with really tough ideas and questions.
Yeah.
Like that is, I'm thinking of a very specific person. And that's their way of showing love.
Yeah.
So I wait to walk with them until I'm in like the research, honing, outlining phase. And then I'm like, hey, like, what do you think about? And then they are the best resource.
I think also one of the things you have to figure out as a creator is like when it's too late to get feedback. So it's like, I don't need your feedback, like from the world, right? Like it's already done. Yeah. So what you think of it is irrelevant because it's done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this is why reviews don't matter that much. Like
they're horrible.
I want feedback when I can do something about it. And then when it's done, all that's either going to puff me up, which isn't helpful, or it's going to make me feel shitty, which isn't helpful. Mm-hmm. You're telling me, how the weather should have been yesterday. It doesn't
do you read your reviews?
I try not to.
I try not to.
Every time I do, I think, why did I do that?
What? Yeah. I like cannot read my reviews.
Yeah.
I really shouldn't. You shouldn't either. We shouldn't. We should not read it. It's not helpful.
And it's too late.
There is one thing I do that's not really a review, but I was very interested with my first book, the sections that were most highlighted.
Oh, sure.
That was very illuminating.
Well, that's up or down. That's just sort of, that's data versus maybe what you would call feedback.
Yeah.
Yes. That's not like, well, there's a writing rule I like, which is that when people tell you that something's wrong, they're almost always right. And when people tell you how to fix it, they're almost always wrong.
Oh, gosh.
So like something highlighting, like either highlighting or not highlighting. This is just objective. It worked for me. It didn't work for me.
Yeah.
That kind of information is helpful. When someone's like, well, what you really should have done is, and it's like, if you knew what I really should have done, you probably wouldn't be a random person in the audience. You would be one of my peers, and I would have already talked to you and elicited your feedback.
I also think there's something to, do you know you're giving advice or are you just being you?
Yeah. Sure.
Right? Like, I think there's something to, if you ask someone, do you have advice for me? They will almost always make up advice for you.
You are predetermining whether you're getting feedback or what kind of feedback you're getting by the question. Like if you send it to someone, you go, do you have any notes? They're not going to say no notes, because that is a note which is implying that it's somehow perfect, which it's not. And, it'd be better, like I've learned, you go, hey, is there anything you think I should cut? Or what do you really like? Like if it's just general notes, they'll give you a bunch of stuff, and chances are they're not actually qualified to just give you a bunch of stuff.
I just made that mistake too. I just asked someone for notes and they gave me too many notes.
Yeah.
I mean, not really, but like I should have asked like, what is the most intriguing part of this section? Yeah. What's funny when I did that highlighting exercise is I'm a little verbose. Yeah. I don't know if you noticed. And every single highlight that had like over 3,000 highlights were the shortest sentences.
Yes.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
But my long, beautiful sentences with commas are so great. No. And so when I wrote cues, I forced myself to write in really short sentences that were like really direct.
Sure.
And my mom read my second book and she's like, it doesn't sound like you. And I was like, it's because I'm writing in short sentences. Yeah. But it worked. Like Cues was a much bigger hit. And Captivate was big, but this was like, it hit better. I think it's because it was shorter.
Well, I think what happened there is you took data and then you deduced a conclusion from that data, as opposed to a singular person who, again, may or may not be qualified, not looking at data and just giving you advice from their very specific opinion.
Yes. And I think that you can do the same thing with interpersonal skills, right? Like, I think it's very helpful to think about what is the first impression you make in one word.
Yeah.
So when you meet someone for the first time, what word do you think pops into their head?
Is it?
Oh, no, I won't. I mean, it's very personal. You're welcome to. You're like, please don't ask me.
Yeah, what answer am I making up?
No, you don't. I wouldn't, because it's very personal, actually.
Yeah.
And so theoretically, what if someone meets you, what's the word that pops in their head? And by the way, I've asked people this on questionnaires because it's often shy, awkward, quiet. It's a lot of those kinds of words. And then I ask people, what's your ideal first impression word?
Sure.
So what do you want people to think of?
What are you aspiring to project or be?
What's the gap?
Yeah.
What is missing from this word to this word? By the way, I've asked thousands of people that question. I think twice someone had the same word.
Oh, what everyone's aspiring for is different?
Like no one felt that their first impression was ideal.
That they're nailing. No one felt
they're nailing it.
Of course.
And that was like, it sort of made me feel better because I think we all sometimes feel like we're making a neutral or negative impression. Although some people did pick very positive first words. And so I thought that was interesting because we all feel like we're struggling.
Yeah, the insecurity is there for everyone.
Yeah. And so I also think like if you're a little bit more purposeful with your ideal first impression and you nail it 10% of the time, that's a major win.
Yeah, that's better than most.
Yeah.
But also I think the idea of the Stoics have this idea of if you don't know what port you're sailing towards, no wind is favorable. Mm-hmm. So if you don't know what you're like, if you're just going around going like, I don't think people see me, I don't think people understand me, I don't think I make a good first impression, which again, I think most of us feel, but you don't know the first impression you're trying to make. Yes. How can you get from where you are, which you're not happy with, to where you want to be if you haven't actually taken the time to articulate it? And that's something you also learn with writing, where sometimes you'll get feedback and the person thinks it's negative, but actually if you know exactly what you're trying to do, they may have just paid you a compliment, which is like, you just described exactly what I'm trying to be. I was hoping, if you're trying to be relatable and someone says, they felt very ordinary or something, maybe that's great. That's what you were going for. If you're trying not to be relatable and someone says they're not relatable, that's not an insult. That's you did it.
It's funny. In that experiment, the ideal words, no one picked relatable, which is funny because that is a great thing to aspire to. Yeah. You know what a lot of people picked? And this really put me down like a little research rabbit hole. Impressive.
Huh.
And I was like, impressive. Okay, so the point of this research, the reason I did it is I was looking for what is content I can create that will be helpful for people to change their first impression. Sure. That was the goal of this research. Yeah. I also wanted to see, if people were different. Okay. Majority of people picked impressive.
Yeah.
Okay. And I thought, what a terrible first impression word, right?
That's
not to say you're wrong.
Or that's a hard thing to nail.
Yes. And also do you really? Really, really?
Yeah.
I think of impressive people that I've met. I don't really like them, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
They're very impressive, but I don't want to open up to them. I don't want to be friends with them. I don't want to hang out with them at dinner. And I also don't trust them always.
Also, it's an extremely hard target to hit. Like, how many impressive people have you met in your life? Like, how many? So you just picked the hardest thing to do instead of something much more attainable and realistic that, by the way, once you did, you could build on,
And also, I think if you were to be really relatable, you do become impressive.
Sure.
I think impressive is a symptom. You cannot be impressive. I think it is a symptom of something else. And I was at a party in Austin with very important people, that people would know. They literally made us sign an NDA before we walked in. And it was like a share circle where you had to introduce yourself, which is my least favorite thing in the world. And I was like, great. I'm just sweating. Yeah, they took my shoes or else I would have left. And that's why I also don't like to go out at night.
Yeah.
So we're in a circle and I'm not joking you. The first person is like, I'm a billionaire. The second person was like, I cure cancer. The third person was like, I help children with all the needs. Yeah. And then it was like me. And I was like, huh. Right. So impressive. Those people were so impressive, but I'll tell you what, I did not want to go talk to them afterwards, but super impressive. It got to me. And so I was like, I don't even play in this arena. So I said, my name is Vanessa. I'm a recovering awkward person and I help recovering awkward people communicate. Everyone laughed.
Yeah.
Everyone laughed. There was and then afterwards, everyone came up and talked to me.
Right.
Except the billionaire.
Sure.
Okay. He didn't. But everyone else was like, relatable. And all the impressive people I watched the room for the 2 hours afterwards, and people didn't want to connect with them. People didn't want to talk to them. They looked more awkward, actually, being like, I guess I get another glass of wine. Whereas my awkward people who came up to me, and by the way, afterwards, everyone in the circle was like, I'm also a recovering awkward person. And I started a company. And so I was like, this is it.
Right.
Like, impressive, we have to stop.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, like, don't try to be impressive. It will make you the opposite. And I failed at that for a long time. So I share that with complete humility.
Yeah, well, look, I think a lot of times we try to be the noun instead of the verb, right? So it's like, you want to be an impressive person, like, I think it's mostly about doing impressive things.
Yes.
And then often what is sort of the most impressive about someone like that is that they are relatable. So you have someone who's done incredible things, and then they seem normal and approachable, and it hasn't changed them. Very rarely do I meet a person who comes off as impressive and has done a bunch of impressive things. There's usually a disconnect. Totally. But it's when you meet someone, you go, whoa, I didn't know you were that person, or I that's incredible. You know, you want to be a little bit underestimated rather than starting with an overestimation.
Yes, like I would always rather be underestimated than try to blow it out of the water. And so for those of you thinking about your words, I don't want to be too prescriptive, but I would encourage you that with your ideal word, warmth trumps almost everything else. So a lot of the words that were like smart, intelligent, impressive, well-read, brilliant, yes, change maker. You know, I had a couple of those. Thought leader, right? I had a couple of those words, and I knew some of these people, not all of them, but we got their Instagram handles, so I was able to like go sneaky peeky, and I was like, wow, like if they just went for more warmth, they actually would probably be seen as these other things.
Yeah.
And I think
approachable, accessible, kind, decent,
likable, likability is a superpower. And I wish we talked more about it. I think we talk a lot about being smart and being impressive and being funny and but actually just being likable is the most powerful thing you can do. And it's being likable is not about doing anything in particular, except one thing, which is, and they researched this, Dr. Van Sloan researched what makes popular kids popular. He studied thousands of high school students across a variety of high schools. It wasn't attractiveness or GPA or humor or extroversion or athleticism. There were popular kids who were that. The one thing was the most popular kids across all the schools and all the grades had the longest list of people they liked. Oh. They were assertively and aggressively liking as many people as they possibly could.
Because people like to be liked.
Yes, and the intention was constant warmth. When he observed these students in the hallway, they weren't walking down over their books, looking down. They were going, hey, Ryan.
Sure.
Hey, Sarah. Like micro moments of warmth. And so that was a game changer for me in that all I have to do at these parties, if I have to go, all I have to do at these events is just, how can I like this person more? What questions could I ask that will have something in common? What could I do to aggressively like this person? If the benefit is that I'm also likable, cool. Yeah. But my entire goal at events is, how can I like more people?
Yeah.
And that is so much less pressure, right? Than like, I'm going to be funny and I'm going to be warm and I'm going to be relatable. Just like more people.
Yeah.
It changes your questions too.
Be interested, be curious, be open.
Yes, I think it was a philosopher who said that in order to be interesting, you must be interested in others.
Yeah.
Interested is half, I think. Interested is like, prove it.
Sure.
And I don't like that, actually. Yeah. So I'm going to say one up, Dale Carnegie, and say, actually, to be likable is to be of extreme liking.
Yeah.
And that your questions are searching for mutual moments of me too.
Yeah.
If I'm going and being like, how can I like Ryan?
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you the questions you hate. I'm not going to ask you, how'd you get started as a writer? I'm not, right? Because you hate that question, right?
Of course.
Of course, so do I. I'm not going to ask you, like, what's your favorite book? Like, I'm not going to ask you those questions because that's not going to help me like you.
Right.
I'm going to ask you questions where I'm searching for moments of likability that we might have in common. Right. And that totally changes my energy, but also my questions.
Right. These are like, do you have kids?
Right.
You know, where do you live?
What do you like about parenting?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you like about Austin? You know, what do you think of the differences between Bastrop and Austin? Like, those are the questions that I'm thinking about. And I think
the things that make you fundamentally human as opposed to the things that make you whatever the specialist you are.
Yes. And also specialist and expert.
Yeah.
I think everyone is an expert in some domain.
Yeah.
But there are, I think, like 2 kinds of VIPs. Like, I don't know if you find this, but there are 2 kinds of VIPs. One VIP loves to entertain. Mm-hmm. They like to tell the stories, share their opinion, be the life of the party, have everyone laugh at their jokes.
Yeah.
That's one kind of VIP. If I meet that kind of VIP, I'm asking lots of questions. Mm-hmm. The other kind of VIP wants to be entertained.
Oh, okay.
They do not want to be asked questions. They do not want to be telling the stories. They want to laugh at your jokes and be intrigued by what you're saying. That is when you're answering your own questions and you're sharing really interesting stories and you're sharing really interesting facts. I think you are the latter. Sorry, the second one.
Yeah, that's probably introverted versus extroverted probably splits that distinction as well.
And people who talk about their work for a living.
Yeah.
So like there are extroverts who talk about their work for a living. So when they get offline, the last thing they want to do is talk about anything.
Yeah.
They're extroverted, but they're like tired.
Yeah.
And so I try really quickly to respect what kind of VIP I'm talking to and see, do they want to be entertained?
Yeah.
Or do they want to be an entertainer?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about like when I'm backstage about to give a talk, do I want to be doing more talking or, you know, do I want to just have a few human moments with a person I'll probably never see ever again in my life?
Do you talk backstage? Because I do. Are you like a quiet contemplator?
I'd rather be listening to music and just sort of pacing.
I realize I need the oxytocin. So I will like go find the AV team and I'm like, so how was breakfast?
Yeah.
Tell me all about it. Like, I think
that at all.
I know. And I'm actually not extroverted.
Yeah.
But I realize I get so in my head that I want the oxytocin. So I will like talk to my Uber driver. I want their life story. Tell me a joke. Tell me about your quinceañera. No, I'm an ambivert.
Right.
Right. And
what's that?
Ambivert. So introverts get their energy from being alone. Extroverts get their energy from being with others. Mm-hmm. Ambiverts can get energy from the right people at the right times, but need lots of recharge time. So I cannot be alone all the time.
Yeah.
No, I do crave people, the right kind of people. Like this is my favorite.
Yeah.
Invite me to a happy hour. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, no, thank you. Cannot do it. It's too loud. I can't have deep conversations. We can't talk about a book. And so I know that if it's an interview situation or a learning situation, I love it. It gives me energy. But anything else, I don't love. On stage, it's very one-sided, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm giving a keynote and I need the oxytocin to not feel like a robot.
Huh. You just need to kind of be
juiced.
Yeah, but be amongst the people. So you're not up there, you know, as this sort of figure pedestal thing. You want to feel real and accessible and just sort of get in that sort of loose zone.
That's it. And I think it's a chemical cocktail of oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine for me.
Yeah.
And I can't get that pacing and listening to music. I can't get that jumping on a trampoline. I need to laugh with a stranger a little bit to juice that cocktail because we in our lab, we studied thousands of hours of TED Talks.
Yeah.
And the most popular TED Talkers are the ones who go on stage and act like they're having a coffee with you.
Right. It's not a performance. They are authentically, personally themselves. Mm-hmm. And they are a master expert at this thing to the point of effortlessness.
And they haven't, they have practice, but you don't hear it.
Yeah.
You don't hear the script. You don't hear the bullets.
There's no effort.
Like Ken Robinson, the quintessential one right? Sure. And Brene Brown's original. Yeah. She comes on stage mid-conversation. Yeah. Like Ken Robinson tells a joke like he's telling a joke at dinner. So that is the energy that works for me.
Loosened up like that.
Yeah. I haven't seen you speak recently, but you can be a little bit...
I'll take the feedback. What can I be?
You know, I feel the gap between you and me. I'm a little scared. And I think you would do so well if you're so warm, actually, when I meet you. And I've known you for years. Yeah. I would love to see the friend Ryan on stage.
All right. Interesting.
And I don't know how you juice that for yourself, but...
No, there is you think about the life of being a performer or a speaker is like, I got on a plane alone. I flew to a place alone.
We're all alone.
Stayed in a hotel room alone. I went to breakfast alone. I worked out alone. Then I'm backstage alone, with the exception of
life.
people sort of going around.
And
then
taping...
you're suddenly in front of 1,000 people or whatever.
This is my life.
And so I could see getting loosened up.
I've noticed with myself that I know the differences. When I watch recordings of myself when I code them. The recordings of myself where I was plane to Uber to workout to gym to dinner to, I am stiffer. There's a warmth and remember, competence without warmth leaves people feeling suspicious.
Right, or lectured to, or
can't relate to this.
Sure.
And so I think it would be a superpower for you if you could just be you. It is you. Sure, it's authentically you, but like you as my friend.
That's interesting. No, it's funny. One of the weirdest audiences I talked to ever was sort of TED related. So the NFL had bring TED to what's called the NFL owners meeting. So it's 32 billionaires, 32 head coaches, and 32 GMs, and spouses.
Not intimidating at all.
And it was at this hotel in Arizona. And so it was like 5 speakers, each doing 10 minutes. I was the last one or the second to last one. Anyways, we're going through the run of show or practice, and then you get there and they go, okay, so you guys will be sitting here, right? Like in the front row. And I was like, absolutely not. I was like, you think I'm going to sit here for 50 minutes in the audience watching the other people and then get up and go? I could not fail harder if that's how you set me up. They were like, okay, fine. Everyone else does it. You don't have to. And so I was sort of pacing in the hallway, and it was funny to watch these different coaches like come and go from the bathroom or whatever, like during the thing. And I'm like, what's going on in there? But I have a sort of, not a nervous, but I'm having to get into a wavelength or a vibe that being part of the audience is very much not that vibe for me. But I'm interested about the idea of talking. Like I would agree. I do like shooting the shit with people as long as it's not like
in the audience.
No, shooting the shit backstage. As long as it's not a heavy lift. Like as long as they're not. So what are you going to talk about? What do you think about this?
No, it can't be that. It has to be chit chat.
Yeah.
Funny chit chat. Like I that's why it's like I find the AV guy, like I want to talk to them and I want to be like, so like, what's been going on? Like, how was your weekend?
I like to go like, who's the biggest asshole you've had to deal with? Like I like sort of gossip and stuff.
But see, that's so good.
Yeah.
Like I would like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like to ask
who's really high maintenance.
Yeah, I love it. Who's the drama queen?
Yeah, exactly.
I love to ask people who was the one everyone was talking about last year. And like, what did you learn from them? Because I'm always like, what is the takeaway that people have?
Sure.
But I agree with you. Sitting in the audience is not my fave. That is not warm. That is not a good cocktail.
Yeah.
That is cortisol and adrenaline. Like that is not the right one. Yeah. And you're not chit chatting with people. You're like sitting there, thinking about yourself.
Stiff.
Yes. Yeah, right. Yes. That is like the absolute worst thing. It's funny because I think the bigger the audience, the more impressed they are, that word, with how casual you are. So like I just did an arena of 10,000. And,
cool.
It was in the round, which is really challenging because you lose your slides. Like because they have monitors for you, but you kind of you lose where you are. Anyway,
there's different like logistics that you got to figure out.
Totally. And so I was like, I was listening to the speakers backstage, and I could hear them really rehearsed. Really, really rehearsed. And so I like because they had been prepping for this moment, and I was like, no. I'm going to go on stage and I'm going to pretend in my mind I am talking to my best friend. And it was one of the best keynotes. And they said to me, come back next year.
Oh, that's
cool. And I just went back again.
Yeah.
And so I think there is something to like, if you can master the warmth, even in like a very impressive big room, especially in front of a room, it is a superpower.
Of course. Well, I mean, it's like the number one fear is public speaking.
Yeah.
People would rather die.
Yeah. I know.
So if you can just show that you're not afraid, to go to the point about fear, if you can show you're not afraid, that you don't have to be totally comfortable with yourself because that can be a little disconcerting, but that you're pretty comfortable.
Conversational.
Yeah. That is immediately
impressive
and intriguing and charismatic.
There's
this person belongs up there.
Yes, there's a difference between presenting and conversation.
Yeah.
And I think no one should ever present.
No, presenting sucks.
Yeah. But I think that people think that once they're in front of 5 people, they're presenting.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like your brain actually goes onto like autopilot listening mode. It's very hard to grok someone who's like, well, watch, here's me talking in a TED Talk voice, okay? Today, I'm going to speak to you about 3 different ideas that are going to change your life. back in the 1930s, there was like...
No, you're in the uncanny valley. You're not actually like an actor who's delivering
that
like
made me need water.
That's how much I hated and then you're not actually... That's not actually how you would talk. And so it's right in the uncomfortable ground of fake, but trying not to be fake, you know?
And we do not like fake.
No.
Our ears hear it, we see it, like we even fake smiles. Like I hate the advice when people are like, just smile more. Like
you know about the uncanny valley, right?
Yes, but please tell me.
I think that's a more common thing than just like video games.
Yes.
The idea of like, we're really good at discerning things that are not quite real. And now I feel like I'm getting better at noticing what is clearly an AI written email or an AI, like, you know, like I was actually just dealing with this contractor and they were sending me this thing. They're like, our concern is that we will have to move this wall plus or minus 18 feet. And I was like,
what?
Done, not working together. You did not write this email because right. no human would say plus or like, and they did it like plus/minus. Like I was like, no human would ever say plus or minus 18 feet. And a contractor would be like, I don't know, like 18 feet or something. Yeah, exactly. Like, so it wasn't even that it was fake. It was like that a contractor, it was the opposite of how a contractor would be, let alone just a human, you know?
Totally, yes.
And I was like, okay, this person isn't treating this interaction seriously.
Okay, so this brings up a good point. If we're talking about Uncanny Valley, when I say you should be warmer, I don't mean fake warmth. And that is really important. Yes. I do not want anyone to just fake smile. That is the worst thing you could do for likability. Yeah. When I say warmth, I mean intentional warmth. Yeah. I mean asking questions, searching for likability, assuming that this could be your next best friend. That is authentic warmth and hopefully will bring out authentic warmth. So authentic warmth cues, eyebrow raises, nods, head tilts, visible hands, leans. Those are all authentic warm things.
Sure.
If I was like, you know, it would look horrible and feel very robotic. Sure. But if I'm like, oh, really? You like that?
Yeah.
It's like very easy for me to do it. So we've also studied this. Dr. Barbara Wilde asked people to smile for real. Think of something that made them happy and smile. Take a picture. Then she asked them to fake smile. Think of something, nothing. She showed people the picture. A lot of the pictures looked very similar to the naked eye. But when people looked at the happy picture, they caught the happiness. Their mood test, they gave them mood tests before and after, they improved their mood.
Sure.
People who looked at the neutral smile had no mood change. Meaning that authentic happiness, authentic warmth is contagious.
Yeah.
And so it creates this beautiful like happiness loop.
Yeah.
So you have to be the spark of the authentic happiness of finding something that you truly like. But that does not mean fake smiling or faking those warmth cues. It's the intention behind it that actually triggers that spark.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's and when you see someone who can do it well, it's very impressive.
Totally.
All right, so I got invited to the South by Southwest party tonight.
You're not going.
That I don't want to go to. Do you have any suggestions for how to get better at saying no?
Oh, you know what? I thought you were going to ask me how you could do better at the party, which I can give you both.
Oh yeah, let's do both.
Okay, both.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, first, yes, if you're going to say no, I'm very good at saying no to parties. Never give a reason.
Okay.
Because people will always either don't like your reason or they argue with it.
Yes.
So never say like, oh, I'm so sorry. I have a friend in town.
You're saying,
bring your friend.
Please argue with me.
Yes.
Like, please convince me.
Yes. And also they might think that your reason is insulting.
Right.
So that's even worse, saying no and giving insults. So like, for example, oh, I'm so sorry, my friend's in town. Bring your friend. Yeah. Right. And then you're like, she doesn't like you. Right. Like you can't say that. Yeah. So just say no. So start with gratitude. Thank you so much for thinking of me. Thank you so much for this wonderful invite. Wow, it looks like an amazing party. Always start with gratitude.
Okay.
Acknowledge it. And then get really quickly to the no with no reasoning or no excuse. Yeah. So thank you so much for the invite to this party. I'm so sorry I won't be able to make it tonight.
Yeah. Sure.
That's it. And don't promise anything else. And don't create a loop. Don't create, but maybe next year.
Sure.
Rain check.
Yeah.
How about next time you're in town? That's like when people tell me they're in Austin, I'm like, have fun. Like I don't see people.
Yeah.
I see 3 people that I like. And so gratitude and hard end, no loops, no equivocation, no excuse.
Okay.
Okay. Now if you have to go.
Wait. So another strategy, tell me what you think of this. Wait till after and then say, sorry, I'm just getting to this now, next time or whatever. Like I do think sometimes people bend themselves into knots trying to explain why they can't do something to someone that they don't owe anything to.
That's true.
Like I did not, in this, the example I'm talking about, not the case, but oftentimes I did not solicit this invitation. We are not friends. Yeah. You know, you are asking something of me. Like this isn't, you're trying to get something out of me. And I think sometimes people feel like they owe the explanation, or they owe a prompt response,
or a promise.
Yeah, you don't even owe acknowledgement. I think is to your friends you do, but to random strangers you do not even owe an acknowledgement.
Agreed. I actually would say I don't like the approach of saying, sorry, I just missed this. I would just archive.
Yes. Yes. You can just
ignore. I would rather you ignore than do the after. Yeah. Because why?
Or I'm just saying, like, sometimes someone will send you a whole email about a bunch of things, and then they'll be like, also, a couple of friends are getting together. I can just be like, I can choose to acknowledge the parts of the thing that I feel comfortable responding to, and I can skip over this part.
That's true.
And if they are going to choose to not read that clue or that social cue and decide to go, yes, but are you going to come to my party? You know, now... Or if they have sent 3 invitations yes. and now they're asking me in person, they have chosen to press an awkward conversation, yes. and it's their awkwardness, not mine.
Okay, let's go one step further. Yeah. I believe in radical transparency, and I think we're in a world where it is accepted. And if someone doesn't accept it, they're not your person. So actually what I say to people is I don't like people I can't come. Yeah. Like literally, I just say to people, I don't do parties.
Yeah, I don't get on the phone. I
don't do nightly. Yeah. I don't do pick your brains.
Yeah.
I don't do it. I'm allergic to those words. I actually have a filter in my inbox that emails that say pick your brain go right to spam. Sure. I do not do it.
No, it's a fucked up phrase. The widespread use of that phrase is an indictment of society. I mean, if you send an email and said, hey, can I pick your pocket? Right? You would be like, what? Yeah. But people go, hey, can I, a total stranger, get together with you and get from you ideas or insights that were hard won or expensively learned for nothing in return. And by the way, I'm also asking for the most valuable thing you have, which is your fucking time.
Oh, and also I'm going to be a competitor to you in 3 years. That's my goal, because I want to be you.
Yeah, I'm also just pretending to be your friend right now. Yes.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I'm pretending to be you, yes. actually. Mm-hmm. So I think that we're in an age where like we should just say, I'm so sorry, I'm too introverted to go tonight.
Yeah.
Like we can say that.
Sure.
And so I would like to normalize that. I've started to do it. I also I have people who like love to text me. Please don't text me. When I'm away from my computer, I'm with my kids.
Yeah.
And I have people who are like work friends, kind of. And so they text, and like I actually said to someone who would send me, I love you, very long voice notes, which are like violence. You know, like I can do a 2-minute voice note, cool. But like not an 8-minute one.
No, what they're saying is, hey, I didn't bother to really think this through and condense it into an actionable or clear way. Here is a audio vomit of, you know, my stream of consciousness. Make of it what you will. And usually what I'm making of it is
I need something.
Read.
Right, exactly. It's like if I wanted to listen to you for 8 minutes, I would listen to your podcast. Like that's how I feel. So I actually said to this person, listen, when I'm on my phone, I'm with my family.
Yeah.
If you have questions, please email me. I'm happy to reply over email.
Sure.
And so I think we have to be okay with that. And if someone's offended, that's not your person.
Yeah. Pick the ways that you're comfortable communicating that are most conducive or best for you. And then don't feel guilty about not checking the other things or ignoring them or
like,
just saying no or whatever.
I stopped doing my DMs because I just like couldn't.
Yeah, and I have 2 inboxes. I have my texts and I have my my email, and then everything else I may occasionally chance to see it, or someone who does check it might tell me that it's there. But otherwise, you might as well have just
so Sam,
it into the void.
Who I've known for years, DM'd me something silly because we used to DM because I used to DM. Yeah. And then my assistant replied and was like, would you like Vanessa's course? And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like,
my wife?
Yes.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I was like, I'm sorry. My assistant didn't know we were friends. Yes. Like it's a weird world. Like we're in like a very weird world. And so I think we also have to be aware of all those modes of communication. And if you really love someone, you ask them, what's your preferred mode of communication?
Yes. Okay, so let's say I do decide to break the general rule and I go to the party, how can I be better at it?
Okay. First,
what are Stoic tips for being good at a public event or social gathering?
Okay, so you should set yourself up for success and be very purposeful with your energy, okay? So you're not going to get trapped in the entrance zone. That is the worst place to stand in an event or party, and it is the biggest mistake that people make because they want to get in and out.
Right.
I see a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't want to be here. So when you go in, and then you want to stand where the best conversations happen. Like, I don't like small talk. Like, if I'm going to be at an event, I want to have I want the full life update. I want to hear how your book went. I want to hear all the details. Sure. The best place to stand at an event, we actually studied this. We studied maps of social flow, is right as people exit the bar or where the drinks are. Not where the food is, where the drinks are. So where you should plant yourself is go in, get your drink, water or alcohol, whatever you want, and then stand where that exit is, because here's what happens chemically for someone. When we enter our event, our emotions are the highest. We're the most nervous, and we're also overhead gazing.
Who's here?
Yeah. Where do I know anyone who's here? It is the worst way to make a conversation. You're going to have really short, stilted conversations and be offended by their overhead gazing. When someone got their drink, they've surveyed, they've settled, and they are desperate for you.
Yeah.
So you become a social savior when you stand right there, because what happens is they turn, even if you're alone, they turn to face the room and you go, hey, so what are you drinking?
Yeah.
What brings you here tonight?
Sure.
You excited to hear the speaker? And you're in it.
Yeah.
It's super easy, and they're dedicated to that conversation with you. And then if you're done, you don't want to have the conversation, it's very easy to say, I'm gonna go grab some food. And I'm gonna grab another drink. It's a real easy exit. That's the place to be for those deep conversations.
Sure. Yeah, I also think I went to someone's book event recently, and it was I was thinking about when I was gonna go, and I realized, hey, if I get there 10 minutes before it starts, 20 minutes before it starts, I can have 5 or 10 minutes with this person, and then I can leave in the middle of it, and they'll have appreciated that I came. They'll be well into the energy and the success of the event. They won't notice that I'm there. But if I get there right when it starts, or even if I get there late, I got to stay to the end to make the same level of impression. And by the way, they'll be exhausted, or you can say that the other version of this is hey, I'll meet you after. What time do you think you'll be done? Let's get a drink or have dinner. Let's do some. And you kind of, I think if you're sort of reluctant to have social encounter, whatever, how do you find the most bang for your buck in the situation, as opposed to just sort of doing unthinkingly what everyone else is doing?
Finding your pocket. So for example, that's such a good tip. Getting there early, I think, is the win for introverts, actually. Yeah. Also, I will often ask women, do you want to get ready together?
Yeah.
That's a very easy way to get 30 minutes of deep talk. Yeah. And you can actually not go to the event.
Yes.
Let's drive together. So there's been people who I really want to catch up with, and I'll even Uber to wherever they're staying, and we will Uber together for that time. And then it's great because you knew they would have been in that ride alone.
Right.
So you can also be very creative with that. There's a story that I tell in Q's. It was really inspiring to me of social strengths. Everyone has different social strengths and social weaknesses. Sure. And it's very important to know which ones you have.
Yeah.
I think this is a very Stoic thing, is to not try to use a weakness if it's not your weakness.
Yes.
So Harry S. Truman, former president, he was not a good public speaker, which is very unique for a president.
Yes.
And so he was at the Democratic National Convention in 1944, and he was very low on the list. People did not think that he was going to make it. And he saw that where everyone was battling was in the same place, was the main stage. Everyone would get up and they'd give speech after stump, speech after speech after speech. He knew he would not be able to compete on that stage because he was not a good presenter. So instead, it was really hot in Chicago that year. He found the one air-conditioned room in the entire convention center in the basement.
Yeah.
And one by one, he invited the delegates down, 1 by 1, 2 by 2, just chat.
Yeah.
And one by one, they'd sit in that air-conditioned basement room with him, and they talked to him, and he just talked to them. And his social strength was one-to-one talking. And it was so cool in that room that no one was excited to leave. And so one by one, and literally every vote, you can watch his votes go up as he brought delegates down, because they would go up and be like, you know what? I just talked to Harry.
Yeah.
He's great. He's really warm.
Right. Having one, again, where's the bang for your buck, instead of just sort of being part of the sort of general
competing in the red ocean, right?
Yes,
that was a red ocean. It was bloody, and it wasn't his strength. And warmth. It's really hard to be warm on stage.
Well, it's what makes the impression right? And so like I just had to go to like a gala for my son's school.
Oh,
and
those
it
are
was like,
fun.
It was like, okay, it starts at 5 and it goes till like 10. It's like I don't want to spend 5 hours at the thing. But it's like we went right when it started, and then we bid on a couple things at the sort of silent auction, and then we had the salad and then we left. But it was like I was there, I was seen, and then I have proof that I was there because I bought something from the auction, right? So somebody had to follow up with me and thank me, whatever.
Totally.
I did. Meanwhile, if we'd been slow getting ready, whatever, we were sitting at the table, they might be like, I didn't see you because you're now everyone is there at the same time, sitting in their seats. And by the way, the people who are putting on the event are busy putting on the event.
Yeah, they don't notice.
And so they don't know, you didn't actually make the impression. And so thinking about, hey, what makes the impression that you're comfortable making? And then I'm a big believer in going out on top, going out after you've made said impression, not lingering if you don't. Go do something you want to do.
Absolutely. By the way, you might have missed the best part of the auction. At our gala, we had cowboy auctioneers.
What is that? Oh, like a cowboy?
I've
been to a cattle auction.
But it was for school.
That's fun. Yeah.
At ours, they have champagne bottles. They walk in and they spray the whole table. It was nuts. I was like, is this what they do in Texas? Like, I'm from California. So I was like, this is the craziest school gala I've ever been to. So you might have missed a cowboy auction for your kids.
Yeah, I guess. I got the thing.
You'll be okay.
Yes,
you'll be okay that you missed it.
Have you read much about Truman?
I read his memoir or his autobiography. Biography. McCullough.
The McCullough. I was just going to say.
It's not autobiography. McCullough.
Very long.
I love it. I'm a memoir person.
Okay, so we'll go talk about books, but the best Truman book, the one you need to read, is it's called Plain Speaking, and it's an oral history of Truman, including so Truman sat for like 30 hours of interviews, and then all of his cabinet members and friends, and it's very hard to get. And then since I've talked about it, it's now like hundreds of dollars on Amazon.
Great,
but it's one of the best presidential books I've ever read.
Okay, I cannot wait to read it because I loved the McCullough. Obviously, I quoted it.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's really good. I just finished reading a book that had all the tapes that were released from Nixon during the civil rights movement. And it was the changing conversations of the civil rights movement. And you can see when they call Martin Luther King and they're trying to debate, it is an incredible book because my next book is about conversation. Yeah. And so I'm looking for pivotal conversations.
Okay.
What changes someone's mind in a conversation? And so in the civil rights movement, you can literally see all the way through the 50s as these conversations are happening and they're recorded.
Well, I talk in the Courage book when JFK calls Coretta Scott King while her husband is in jail. That is what basically pivots the black vote from Republican to Democrat. And that's what convinces Martin Luther King to vote for John F. Kennedy. And the whole election is decided by like 50,000 people. It's one conversation. That, is it Sergeant Shriver? One of the Shrivers has a hard conversation with Kennedy, who then has a hard conversation with Coretta Scott King. And that is what presidential election.
Yeah, there's some other juicy stuff in the Nixon era. There's some really juicy stuff.
The interesting thing is Nixon, he refuses to. Nixon is friends with King, but he's like, I don't want to get involved. And he fails to have the conversation, and it probably costs him the presidential election.
Costs him a lot.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But also, yes. So I think that like there's so many the oral histories are like it. And now that we're getting more and more tapes and they're being analyzed, so much juicy goodness.
All right, well, let's go next door.
Okay.